Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we gotta talk about the recent allegations against Mayor Eric Adams, because my mayor, the mayor of New York City, has recently become the first mayor in the history of the city of New York to be indicted on criminal charges while he's in office. This story is absolutely crazy. It involves foreign influence from the government of Turkey, illegal campaign contributions, wire fraud. It also involves some straight up bribery if the allegations are proven to be true. And on top of that, Mayor Eric Adams is throwing out anything and everything that he possibly can in order to defend himself, including accusing the Biden administration of being a bunch of evil white racists and the Justice Department, as well as saying that they're going after him because he's talking about the illegal migrants in a way that his own party doesn't like. It's madness. We're going to get into it. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Good evening. I'm Byron Pitts in New York. We have breaking news this evening. New York Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury, according to sources familiar with the matter.
Like I said in the open, Eric Adams has been indicted on federal charges, making him the first mayor sitting in the history of the city of New York to be indicted on these criminal charges. Now, he says that he did nothing wrong. He actually had a pre-recorded video that was set to go out if he was going to be charged, testifying to that fact. But in reality, in actuality, when you look into the indictment, it doesn't look very good for Mr. Eric Adams, if I'm being perfectly honest.
My fellow New Yorkers, it is now my belief that the federal government intends to charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies. But they would not be surprising. I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target. And a target I became. For months, leaks and rumors have been aimed at me in an attempt to undermine my credibility and paint me as guilty. Just this past week, they searched the home of our new police commissioner, looking for documents from 20 years ago, just 1 week after he joined my administration.
Now look, a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, are running defense for Adams right now in this moment. There's a lot of tinfoil hat wearers that are saying, you know, he's only really being investigated, he's only really being charged due to his stance on illegal migrants, due to the fact that he's called out the Biden administration. But the fact of the matter is, Eric Adams doesn't have a coherent position on illegal migrants. He's often given them more funding, and I think New York City is paying more for the migrants than other cities around the country, and he's used his own donors as the mechanism in order to deliver that aid to the illegal migrants. So when he says he's going after the Democrats, it kind of rings hollow when you actually understand the policy.
When the federal government did nothing as its broken immigration policies overloaded our shelter system with no relief, I put the people of New York before party and politics.
On top of that, while Adams has called out the Biden administration for this border problem and for the lack of aid, he's also accused Texas governor of evil white racism because he says Greg Abbott is sending the migrants only to cities with black mayors, and that, of course, is indicative of evil white racism and has nothing to do with the fact that New York City declared itself a sanctuary city and New York State declared itself a sanctuary state, and all these border states are tired of dealing with these illegal migrants, so they said, you know what, you want them, you take them, and now they're regretting what they asked for, even if Adams himself did not ask for these migrants specifically. That being said, my position on Eric Adams is pretty much unchanged. During the Democratic primary, when you had all manner of radicals running to the left of Bill de Blasio and Andrew Yang offering people universal basic income, he was the best on the most important issue, which of course was crime and criminal justice. And I knew Adams was going to win running on that platform because unlike other blue cities in this country, New York City has shown that they would elect a tough on crime Republican as mayor, which is something that you don't see in Chicago or Philadelphia or any of these cities that end up tossing their woke, crazy mayor and replacing them with an even woker, even crazier mayor. But I also always gave the caveat that Mayor Eric Adams was a Brooklyn borough president, and those positions are rife with corruption. Now again, this is not a situation where you have somebody running for a New York State Attorney General like Letitia James, who's running on bankrupting you, and then they end up suing you in an attempt to bankrupt you using obscure interpretations violations of law.
And right now, what we need is someone who understands that you should not be afraid, not be fearful of Donald Trump. We should take him down. We should sue him all the way to bankruptcy. We should investigate his business interests. We should investigate his business holdings. We should investigate whether or not why he was once in debt and now in a position to purchase all of this property. We can do that because I've been trained to do that, and I will do that at the same time knowing the Office of Attorney General and its powers and its responsibilities and its duties. My name is Letitia James, and I plan on being the next Attorney General of the state of New York. God bless you and thank you.
The Adams situation is different. So unsurprisingly, these allegations, or as the supermayor would call them, alizations,
false allegations and not facts.
And unsurprisingly, the point of contact identified in the indictment between the Turkish government and Eric Adams dates all the way back to when he was Brooklyn Borough President. But without further ado, let's get into the actual indictment. Let's see what is being alleged so you can understand it. And we'll start with the campaign finance issues because there are many. Now, there's two main components of this campaign finance issue, and although they are related, they're actually different acts of criminality, and that's why they need to be highlighted a bit separately. So first and foremost, there is the issue of the straw donors. And what a straw donor typically is when I, let's say as a person, contribute the maximum to a candidate, and I want to give that candidate more because I really want them to win election. However, since I've reached my max, I can no longer legally do so. But instead, the crazy idea that I concoct in my brain is that I'm going to have a friend or relative of mine contribute the maximum in terms of their campaign contribution under their name, and I will reimburse them later.
Please come and join me inside my house as I show you how simple items such as bamboo paper can be an indicator of marijuana use, or a cut of straw can be an indicator of using cocaine. I will show you how to search a room to ensure that you remove illegal handguns and other contraband from your home.
Now, Eric Adams is actually accused of doing this on an absolutely grand scale, and this, of course, involves money from people that are connected to the Turkish government, from Turkish businesses, from people living in the United States of America that are not American citizens and thus do not qualify to donate to a mayoral campaign. And on top of that, he had them donate actually smaller amounts than you would normally see, based on the fact that New York City has this public financing law that will essentially 8 times any donation $250 or less, which is how Eric Adams was able to get basically $10 million, according to this indictment, of taxpayer funds into his campaign. Now, what I love about this particular scheme is the fact that this public financing law is meant to actually reduce corruption and get mayoral candidates to go out there and solicit donations from more regular, ordinary people, and that's why you have the amplification of this money. Now, of course, you get up to $2,000, meaning the 8 times multiplier is more effective when you donate $250, and the feds are alleging that Eric Adams received a whole bunch of these $250 donations. And by the way, if you're not very good at math, in order to get nearly $10 million of taxpayer money, that means that Eric Adams would have had to have gotten in small, under $250 donations at least $1,250,000 in these illegal donations. So a system that was designed to reduce corruption, reduce reliance on big donors, actually, according to the indictment, created an incentive for Eric Adams to take all these different various straw donors. Now, to give you a specific from the indictment, it says, in November of 2018, businessman 1, the wealthy Turkish national who owned the Turkish University, a for-profit educational conglomerate in Turkey, and whom Adams met there in 2015, visited New York City. Adams and the Adams staffer met with businessman 1 at the Brooklyn Borough Hall. At the close of the meeting, businessman 1 offered to contribute funds to the 2021 campaign. This would be Mayor Eric Adams' first mayoral campaign. Although that Adams knew that businessman 1 was a Turkish national who could not lawfully contribute to elections, Adams directed the Adams staffer to obtain illegal contributions offered by businessman 1. Following up on this directive, Adams wrote to the staffer that businessman 1 is, quote, ready to help. I don't want his willing help to be wasted, close quote. As Adams directed, the Adams staffer maintained contact with businessman 1 through intermediaries, culminating in Adams accepting straw donations from businessman 1's money, discussed below.
After word came that he has been indicted by a federal grand jury in New York, Byron, this follows a 10-month investigation into corruption. It began with an investigation into the mayor's fundraising from his 2021 campaign and whether his campaign took illegal foreign money, particularly from Turkey, in exchange for official favors by Eric Adams. And the investigation has more recently ballooned into a broader corruption inquiry involving some of his top deputy mayors and others in his inner circle.
Now look, you guys could say to yourselves, you know what, Sean, even though this obviously looks illegal, the fact of the matter is Mayor Eric Adams just wanted to be mayor of New York City so hard that he had to get the money in order to fight off the woke people that were running against him. And I can understand you guys out there in the audience thinking that this obvious criminality, if again true from the indictment, is somehow acceptable given all the different various people that were running for mayor against him. Again, Maya Wiley, the candidate endorsed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was too woke for the de Blasio administration. She quit that administration in order to run for mayor, and even if it took these Turkish contributions and Eric Adams going to jail, denying her that position probably still worth it, if I'm being perfectly honest. But the thing is, Eric Adams was not just taking this money for his campaign. He was not just scamming taxpayer dollars out of the public financing fund. He was also accepting bribes himself in the form of luxury travel benefits and other things. And by the way, one of the funniest parts about this, which we will get into later, is that one of Eric Adams' staffers actually thought that one of the bribes that was offered to him would be way too unethical for even Eric Adams to take. Then that staffer contacted Eric Adams, and Eric Adams, to that staffer's surprise, said, yes, I will accept that bribe. So again, if true, this is absolutely devastating for the mayor of the city of New York.
What I would like to show here is to empower parents on how to search a room inside their home. It's imperative that you should know what's inside your household. And no one can state that you can't search a room in your own home. You write the Constitution.
But we're going way too fast. We actually have to jump back in time in order to talk about these travel benefits to when Adams was the Brooklyn Borough president and he established these corrupt relationships all the way back in 2015. And by the way, this pattern of behavior that he engaged in 2015 not only carries through to his current position as the mayor, but it actually shows that he knew that he was supposed to disclose certain things because he did back then that he no longer discloses to the public now. In 2015, Eric Adams, the defendant, took 2 official trips to Turkey. His first trip was in August 2015, which was arranged by the Turkish Consulate General in New York City, which will be named as the Turkish Consulate, and paid for in part by the Turkish Consulate and in part by a for-profit educational conglomerate based in Istanbul. This is the Turkish University guy, which by the way is the same person that set up all those straw donations for Adams later on. The second trip in December 2015 was arranged by a Turkish official and a Turkish entrepreneur that they call the promoter, whose business includes organizing events to introduce Turkish corporations and business people to politicians, celebrities, and others whose influence may benefit the corporations and business people. For both trips, Adams received free business class tickets on the Turkish airline. Unlike Adams' subsequent travel with Turkish Airlines, however, Adams actually reported this 2015 travel on financial disclosure forms with the New York City Conflict of Interest Board, as he was required to do annually at all times relevant to this indictment. So I want to give you guys some context so you can understand exactly the level of luxury that Eric Adams was being offered, because you guys might hear business class and think of American business class, where you end up having just a bigger seat in the front of the plane, but there's not all that many special perks. Well, on Turkish Airlines, business class is the top class that they offer, so this would be more equivalent to their first class. And to show you a photo of when I flew business class on my honeymoon, which by the way I was able to get with credit card points, you see that the seat actually reclines to to a full bed, there's better food, there's all these other different various perks, and a typical Turkish business class ticket costs about $10,000 and can go up to $15,000 depending on the travel season. So Eric Adams back then was given 2 round-trip business class tickets that could be valued anywhere combined between $20,000 and, of course, $30,000, and that's absolutely crazy. Now, to be clear, Adams went on this trip with him and his wife or partner. I'm not exactly sure if he's married at this moment in time because it's listed as partner. So we're talking about combined totals, but on this specific trip, he ended up bringing a staffer, and this is a staffer that later on would help manage and maintain the relationship with the Turkish government.
You can look at a jewelry box. A jewelry box of this nature, maybe a simple jewelry box, but if you look through it closely, you don't know what your child may be hiding. For instance, a gun could be hidden, a small caliber weapon could be hidden inside a jewelry box. Look at the various colognes and perfumes and photos and pictures. You should always, when your child brings in his popular knapsack with many different locations, look through it to see what exactly is your child carrying in addition to a book. Something simple as a crack pipe, a used crack pipe. Could he have found it on the street? That's quite possible. But this is a discussion piece where you should start speaking with him to find out what is he doing with it.
So we fast forward to 2016, and Adams starts accepting free luxury travel in secret. So after Eric Adams first traveled to Turkey in 2015, the Turkish official introduced Adams to Turkish Airlines general manager in New York City area, known as the airline manager. And in 2016 and in 2017, 2 times in 2016, once in 2017, Adams solicited and accepted free and heavily discounted luxury airfare from the Turkish airline as a part of the Turkish officials' effort to gain influence over Adams. On October 2016, he and his domestic partner, known as Adams' partner, traveled to India. Adams' partner purchased economy class tickets for herself and Adams from Turkish Airlines for approximately $2,286. 2 days before their flight was scheduled to depart, Adams accepted upgrades for himself and his partner by the Turkish airline to business class at no cost. The business class is the highest one offered by Turkish Airlines, which we went over, and had his partner purchased the business class tickets, they would have cost approximately $15,000 total. Now again, this is just one trip to India where he flew business class, and like I said, he was not upgraded based on the fact that he had enough points with Turkish Airlines or anything like that. He was upgraded based on the fact that they had this contact in Turkish Airlines, the company. In July and August of 2017, a close relative of Adams and member of Adams' staff who served as Adams' liaison to the Asian American communities of New York City, which is referred to as the Adams liaison, traveled to Nice, France, Istanbul, Turkey, Colombo, Sri Lanka, and Beijing, China. Adams accepted free business class tickets from the Turkish airline worth more than $35,000 total for himself and his companions. In October of 2017, Adams and the Adams liaison traveled to Nepal through Istanbul and Beijing. Adams accepted free business class tickets from the Turkish airline for himself and the Adams liaison for flights from New York to Istanbul and Istanbul to Beijing, and for the corresponding returning flights worth more than $16,000. So yeah, Adams, and it appears a relative of his, also used this travel to go to different various parts of the world. Again, business class, the top tier class at Turkish Airlines, and they accepted this for free, and none of this was disclosed on the required forms where Eric Adams is supposed to expose this information to the public in order to prevent the very corruption that's happening. Now, because Turkish Airlines provided free travel benefits worth tens of thousands of dollars, Eric Adams, the defendant, flew Turkish Airlines even when doing so was otherwise inconvenient. For example, during the July and August 2017 trip, Adams' partner was surprised that Adams was in Turkey when she understood him to be flying from New York to France. Adams responded, "Transferring here. You know the first stop is always Istanbul." When Adams' partner later inquired about planning a trip to Easter Island, Chile, Adams repeatedly asked her whether the Turkish airline could be used for their flights, requiring her to call the Turkish airline to confirm that they did not have an offer between New York and Chile. Listen, don't get me wrong. I saved up the credit card points in order to travel in a luxury way with the wife in the honeymoon because because it is definitely something that is nice. It's nice to be catered to on a plane. The lounges and all the perks and the food are great. But the idea that I would fly from New York to Istanbul just so I could go to Chile is crazy in every possible way. That is like some nuance bro level stuff. A guy who loves luxury flights so much that he will actually fly luxury to another country only to stay in the airport for 2 days so that he could then fly back to the United States of America just so he can post pictures on his Tinder profile of him in the luxury seats on the plane. That's how crazy that guy is. But Eric Adams is doing it not with credit card points. He's doing it on the backs of these Turkish businessmen. And again, this is an influence operation.
Behind a picture frame, you can find bullets. What does that mean to find bullets? Does it mean your child is carrying a gun? No. Where there's smoke, there's possible fire. Where there's a bullet, there's possibly a gun.
So not only, according to this indictment, did Eric Adams accept luxury flights from Turkish Airlines, from their business person who was trying to corrupt him, but he also accepted from businesswoman one stays at the St. Regis in Istanbul in the Bentley suite, which, by the way, partially or all of it was paid for by said businesswoman. Now, there are some crappy black and white photos of the Bentley suite in this particular segment, but let me be clear about something. Pretty nice, as you can see. Big room, extra room, look at that luxury bathroom. Obviously, it's very fancy. Now, Eric Adams, according to the indictment, paid just $600 in order to stay here during his travels, when the actual price of this, if you were to pay for it out of pocket, would be $7,000. Obviously, something sketchy going on right here. And again, this is another Turkish businesswoman that he met and that he ended up soliciting for illegal campaign contributions. If you guys are curious about whether or not Eric Adams knew that this was a corrupt thing to do. On top of that, on his forms, his disclosures, he did not report these as gifts. And by the way, the disclosure form asks you if you received any gifts over $1,000, and it also asks you if you've received any gifts over $50, and Adams filled out no and no for years after the original trip back in 2015.
Look at all the items inside the room and feel around and see what's the possibility. Something simple as a baby doll. Could be just a baby doll, but also it could be a place where you can secrete or hide drugs.
Now, this is where things get really funny, because Mayor Eric Adams also proves throughout the course of this indictment, again, if it proves to be true, to be an absolutely idiotic individual in every possible way. Because not only did Adams just report the wrong amount of money or have receipts for the wrong amount of money that he supposedly paid for these different various trips that don't line up anywhere with reality, but he also decided that he was going to create a fake paper trail for himself to show that he was reimbursing these benefits. But the thing is, Eric Adams is an actual idiot. Like, he's actually really, really dumb, and he thought emails to his assistant would be sufficient in order to create this paper trail in order to throw off the feds. And needless to say, that is not the case. This doesn't come off as remotely believable. And of course, it involves the Fonnie Willis defense of I just have all these cash around with me, and I use that cash to reimburse off the books anything that you guys say is corrupt. Eric Adams, the defendant, also sought to conceal luxury travel benefits he solicited and accepted from foreign nationals by creating fake paper trails which members of Adams' staff assisted in at his discretion. For example, Adams attempted to create a fake paper trail suggesting that he had paid for his 2017 flights on the Turkish airline, when in fact he had not. As Brooklyn Borough President, Adams employed a scheduler known as the Adams Scheduler, who managed his appointments, meetings, and other official events. Despite her status as a New York City employee, the Adams Scheduler was used by Adams to perform personal tasks for him, such as collecting rent at a Brooklyn property he owned. Adams also assigned the scheduler to pay various personal expenses for him, after which Adams would reimburse the scheduler in cash. So first of all, let's just point something out really quickly. Eric Adams, Democrat, one of these people that's got to protect women and all these different minority rights, has somebody that they call a scheduler, but in reality sounds more like a secretary, a female secretary. And not only does this person have official duties that they're supposed to engage in, that they're being paid for, but Eric Adams also assigned her a bunch of different other personal tasks, like collecting rent from tenants in buildings that he owned and paying a bunch of different various personal expenses. And Adams would often reimburse this scheduler in cash in order to cover these different various expenses. Now, the paper trail that Adams is setting up right here is incredibly stupid. You'd have to be very low IQ to believe that this is real. But the fact is, Adams is hoping for very dumb people on the jury, I guess, that will actually buy into this, because it's absurd, and technically it worked for Fani Willis to just lie about all the different various times you paid off things with cash, so maybe, just maybe, in this particular circumstance, this will come off as believable, because remember, it's a black thing.
Run your hands over the pillows and see if you feel anything that's unusual. Like a pillow like this with a button is a perfect invitation to hide something. And I felt something bumpy, I would reach in, see what it is. This one could be hidden inside a pillow, a gun. Maybe something that you'll think that can't be hidden there, but it can.
In 2017, Adams sent a series of emails to his scheduler directing the Adams scheduler to pay for the free 2017 flights he and his companions had already taken on the Turkish airline. But the emails provided inconsistent explanations. In some, Adams suggested that Adams' scheduler should pay using Adams' credit card, while in others, Adams claimed to have left cash in an envelope for the Adams scheduler to send to the Turkish airline. For example, on November 25th, 2017, Adams sent an email to the Adams scheduler saying, with respect to the July trip, in quotes, meaning the July and August trip on Turkish Airlines, I left you money for the international airline in an envelope in your top desk drawer. Please send it to them. Given the cost of the international business class tickets for Adams alone, the email suggested that he had to leave a minimum of over $10,000 in cash in that drawer to send to the Turkish airline as payment for flights taken a month earlier. He did not do that, as records from the Turkish airline confirm that Adams did not pay the airline in cash or otherwise because the tickets were complimentary. Okay, so let's break down how stupid this is. So Adams says he has his assistant cover his personal expenses, and many a time when the expense is real, Eric Adams will have them use the credit card in order to cover that. However, sometimes when the expense is not real, like paying back complimentary tickets that Eric Adams had no intention of paying back, he would claim that there's an envelope full of cash in the drawer that you should use in order to pay those expenses. And I will just point out that paying Turkish Airlines in cash when this person has your credit card and debit card information and can do an electronic transaction that would create a real paper trail is the most inconvenient thing that you could possibly do. Now again, Eric Adams is going to say that this is a black thing, but let's be real, this is nonsense. If you believe this, you're an idiot. The idea that Eric Adams thought he wouldn't get caught shows a level of entitlement that's absolutely embarrassing. And again, he's playing the race card because that's the go-to move for these Democrats. Hide behind identity.
We have a brand. New York has a brand. And when people see it, it means something. You know, when we go there, it's not, Kansas doesn't have a brand. You know, when you go there, okay, you're from Kansas. No, well, you know what? But New York has a brand.
This is not a black thing. This is not a black thing. This is a youth thing. This is a youth thing, Eric Adams. This is not a black thing. Your policies are anti-black. You are disrespect to all black people in this city.
Now look, as I'm making this video, I realize that there is no way I'm going to have the time to go through all of this, so I'm going to go over the thing where Eric Adams' own staffer was shocked at his corruption, and I'm also going to talk about another ridiculously stupid lie that if you guys thought the previous lie about the cash in the envelope in the drawer in order to reimburse Turkish Airlines for a complimentary ticket was dumb, you will be blown away with how dumb Eric Adams actually is in this other lie that he told to the FBI.
Just look and see what's inside your bookcases. It could be more than just books. Perfect place to hide cocaine or other illegal substance.
So on June 22nd, 2018, the same day as a fundraising event that was described earlier in the indictment, the Adams staffer and promoter discussed by text message a possible trip by Adams to Turkey. The promoter stated in part, "Fundraising is not illegal in Turkey, but I think I can raise money for your campaign off the record." The Adams staffer inquired, "How will you declare that money here?" The promoter responded, "He won't declare it or will make a donation through an American citizen, a Turk, and I'll give cash to him or send it to an American. He will make the donation to you." Adams staffer replied to this, quote, "I think he wouldn't get involved in such games. They might make a big stink of that later on, but I'll ask anyways." The Adams staffer asked, "How much do you think would come from you?" And the promoter responded, "Maximum 100K. The Adams staffer wrote, 100K? Do you have a chance to transfer that here? We can't do that while Eric is in Turkey." To which the promoter replied, "Let me think." After this conversation, the Adams staffer asked Adams whether or not the staffer should pursue this unlawful foreign contribution offered by the promoter, and contrary to the Adams staffer's expectations, Adams directed the staffer to pursue the promoter's illegal scheme. So Adams is so corrupt that somebody involved in his corruption and covering it up was shocked at the levels, the depths that he would go to, according to this indictment. But again, that's not even the best part about this. There's so many good things, so much entertainment, but I have one final treasure for you guys because it's absolutely amazing.
Welcome to our trash revolution, and no one does it better.
So one of the things that to me is clear throughout the course of this indictment is that Eric Adams, his team, the Turks, all these people, among the crimes that they are charged with, likely could easily be charged with obstructing justice, and all these different various ways that they did so, destroyed evidence, and all these other things are laid out here, but you need to understand that Adams is actually not charged with this as of right now, even though it seems like you could make the case that he easily could be. Eric Adams, the defendant, and his co-conspirators and agents continued their efforts to defeat scrutiny of their criminal conduct after the federal investigation into those crimes became known to them. On November 2nd, 2023, special agents for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, executed search warrants at, among other locations, the residences of Adams fundraiser, Businessman 5, and the Adams staffer. Each took actions to conceal criminal conduct. After learning that the FBI agents had arrived at her residence, but before answering the door to the repeated knock by the feds, the Adams fundraiser called Adams 5 times, even though the agents had not yet given the Adams fundraiser any indication of the purpose of their visit. When the Adams fundraiser then spoke with the FBI agents, she agreed to discuss many subjects, but refused to say who had paid for her 2021 travel to Turkey. As the FBI agents departed the Adams fundraiser residence, Adams attempted to call the Adams fundraiser on the phone. On the morning that the FBI executed this search, Adams had flown to Washington, D.C. for a publicized official meeting, but upon learning about the search, Adams canceled the meeting and immediately returned to New York City. Businessman 5, who agreed to speak with the FBI agents, acknowledged that he and his employees had contributed to the 2021 campaign. Businessman 5 further acknowledged that he had spoken with the Turkish official about the construction company's fundraiser for the 2021 campaign. But Businessman 5 lied in order to conceal the straw donations that he orchestrated, falsely denying that he caused the construction company to reimburse his employees for their contributions and that he knew why the company had issued identical checks to the 10 employees for the amount of their contributions shortly before the fundraiser. The Adams staffer, who agreed to speak with FBI agents, falsely denied the criminal conduct of herself and Adams, among others, and at one point during the voluntary interview, the Adams staffer excused herself to the bathroom and while there, deleted the encrypted messaging applications she used to communicate with Adams, the promoter, the Turkish official, the airline manager, and others. So yeah, you have these different various businessmen that they're covering up, they're lying to the feds, they're getting themselves into even more trouble, but the Adams staffer went for the destruction of evidence maneuver, the Hillary Clinton maneuver by deleting the apps that contained the messages. And by the way, one of the reasons why you knew this was super sketch is because after these different meetings, the feds in many cases would seize their electronic devices. So they would know what they had done to them because they had warrants for those things. So they knew when Adams was calling this person after the raid actually occurred that Adams was calling because they had Adams's phone. On November 6, 2023, FBI agents executed a search warrant for electronic devices used by Adams, the defendant. Although Adams was carrying several electronic devices, including cell phones, he was not carrying his personal cell phone, which is the device he used to communicate about the conduct described in the indictment. When Adams produced his personal cell phone the next day, in response to the subpoena, it was locked, such that the device required a password to open. Adams claimed that after he learned about the investigation into his conduct, he changed the password on November 5th, 2024, and increased the complexity of the password from 4 to 6 digits. Adams had done this, he claimed, to prevent members of his staff from inadvertently or intentionally deleting contents of his phone because, according to Adams, he wished to preserve the contents of his phone due to the investigation. But Adams further claimed that he had forgotten the phone password he had just set, thus was unable to provide the FBI with a password to unlock his phone. And for me, that is absolutely 100% the best lie Eric Adams has told, because it's obviously the worst lie Adams had told. So he changes his PIN, according to himself, from a 4-digit PIN to a 6-digit PIN. And he says the reason why he wanted to change his PIN from the 4-digit one to the 6-digit one was so that the police would be able to get this information off his phone, and nobody in his staff would grab his personal phone, open it with the 4-digit PIN, because they would just know that somehow, and then delete the not incriminating information, because Eric Adams is trying to be as open and as transparent as possible. So the FBI is like, okay, sure, whatever, can you unlock the phone now? And Eric Adams is like, no, I forgot the password. I don't remember it. I only changed it yesterday to do you a favor, guys. I forgot it. That's the worst lie I've ever heard. It's absolutely horrible. And again, the FBI has him dead to rights on a couple of issues. According to this indictment, again, it still has to be proven to be true, like the fact that he allowed the Turkish consulate to open without a fire inspection, so it wasn't even graded to be safe enough. And the reason they did this is due to pressure from these businessmen because Erdogan was coming to town, and all these other different various rules that he ended up bending over backwards to break for the Turks. That's all the stuff that's like the pro in the quid pro quo. But the fact that Adams is this bad of a liar as a politician, to me, is hilarious. So look, you guys could say, migrants, illegals, blah, blah, blah. You could bring up the fact that Bill de Blasio's wife was never charged or never investigated for stealing nearly $1 billion from Thrive New York. But the fact of the matter is, this seems like an old school kind of corrupt bribery scheme going on with Eric Adams. And again, even though he's innocent until proven guilty, the man has managed to paint himself as very guilty looking. And I'm not surprised by this because, again, Brooklyn borough president before he was mayor. Now, Adams has vowed to not resign. And honestly, I hope he doesn't, because the guy who would take his place is way worse. He's a Black Lives Matter activist, horrible in every way. It's a guy called Jumaane Williams, the current New York City public advocate, and honestly, I'd rather have the criminal Adams than even this guy for 90 days. But those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the craziness of Eric Adams. Till next time.